Now, before we get into details about Adobe Camera Raw, let me give you just one slight little housekeeping admonition here. Adobe Camera Raw does not collapse below 800 pixels, and this lesson is being recorded at 768, so there's going to be a little bit of truncation here. It's going to look weird to you, and if you notice that, well, that's the reason why. But as we take a closer look at Adobe Camera Raw and just kind of scan the workspace, we see a lot of things going on here that are really so well organized. That's the thing about Adobe Camera Raw that's amazing, is how well organized it is. The minute the thing opens, it's got, as I mentioned before, it's got the histogram on display up here, but you've also got some of the more salient pieces of information about the image here. It's shot in an f4 at 1/13 of a second, ISO 400 with the 24-70 lens set at 52 millimeter. And as I run the cursor over the image, look up here on the RGB. I don't have to have an info tab like I do in Photoshop. You just run the cursor over the image, and I get the RGB values on this image. And it looks like, obviously, that it's pretty much white balanced because those image numbers or those RGB values are pretty much together. There's a little bit of variation, but basically they're together, so the white balance is good. However, if I do want to vary the white balance, I have all these different choices to choose from. But let's take the first panel that you're going to incur, which is basic, and that's pretty self-explanatory. It's what I mean about being intuitive. It is what it says it is. It's basic stuff. And we can adjust the temperature. We can warm this up, and as we warm it up, we can look and see that the RGB values are skewed for the red and the greens higher than the blue levels. And then, of course, if we want to back that down and then do the tint slider, we can adjust the tint. We can adjust the exposure. We can adjust the contrast, although I don't recommend that you use a contrast slider. We'll get into that when we get into some details about the curves dialog box, but if you're going to adjust contrast, do it with the curves dialog box and not the contrast slider. Here's the highlights slider, and look at how the highlights change a little bit. Shadows darker or lighter depending on what your situation is. The whites, the blacks. Now here's what I really like. Now this is going to work on this particular image because it's got kind of a rough feel to it, okay? Clarity. Look at how the contrast jumps. Okay, we'll go from here way over to there, and that really adds detail and drama to the image. Vibrance is also a pretty cool thing because what it does is it boosts some of the more subtle colors. So when you're dealing in a pastel environment, say color in a shaded environment, it's really going to help make some of those colors jump. And then plain old everyday saturation that boosts everything the same way. Now let's take a look at the Tone Curves tab, and this is where the Curves dialog box resides. But as I try to grab a hold of this line and move it around like I would in Photoshop, you'll notice that it doesn't work that way. I can't do it. I have to make the adjustments down here. And I'm a creature of habit, and I really like being able to come in here and grab this manually. But what I can do is I can move these values over, which is what I think I'm going to do to give yourself some more dynamic range. And if I want to move the highlights, look at how the line changes as I move this slider over to the right. And the lights, look at how that line moves, and look at how this line moves, and so on. So let's put an S curve on this image. I'm going to drop the shadows, I'm going to drop a little bit of the darks, and then I'm going to come up with the whites, go up with the highlights, and you can see that even though I can't grab the line just coming up into here and grabbing it and pulling it any way I want to, doesn't mean that it doesn't do its job. And look how these are stair-stepped for an S-curve. Now this is what's known as the parametric measurement. Let's do the point measurement, and here is where I can grab it and move it the way I want it done. And then I can also come and grab the blues and adjust them independently. You can see how that changes. I can also grab the reds and so on, obviously with the green as well. So all kinds of different ways to invoke the curves dialog box to increase your contrast or do whatever you feel like the image needs. Next is details. Now I gotta tell you that I would never do noise reduction or sharpening in Adobe Camera Raw. There are much better algorithms for sharpening in Photoshop using the unsharpen dialog box. I know that's a misnomer. That name has always been very confusing to me, but it's the best way to do sharpening. Don't do sharpening in Adobe Camera Raw, nor do noise reduction. Whatever you do, don't do noise reduction in Adobe Camera Raw. It's much better to get Noise Ninja or Neat Image, and those are two plugins that you can get for, what, around 50 bucks. One of them I think is even $30, and they work much, much better than the noise reduction functions in either Photoshop or Adobe Camera Raw. So even though the tabs are here, and if you want to, I guess go ahead, but if you want really, really good results on your sharpening and noise reduction, do it outside of Adobe Camera Raw.